5 grand. I mean, in Tennessee, it's like a lot cheaper because I deal with Tennessee labor, of course. But you know, here it could be a lot of money. You know, it could cost you a lot. But you know, so when you're dealing with the rehabs and the market value, those are the two X factors. You have to get dialed in really well. And if you're not sure, if you can't walk through a house and understand what the rehab is now, then go through and practice on listings, on other properties. Just do a walkthrough and go to Home Depot and start pricing everything out. Go to Lowe's or all the other places that you buy materials from, and these outlet stores and things like that, and start pricing things out to understand what things cost.
But don't be afraid to renegotiate either.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Like that people, so everybody thinks they're gonna get it right the first time. Renegotiate every damn time. Like, have a contractor walk it, right, when it's in a contract, and they're not wasting time. And then if the contractor came in at $47,000, sorry, I need to pay $3,000 less. And then be willing to be like, sorry, I don't want it then.
And I think that's really important to understand is, you know, a lot of the acquisition piece is selling, is learning how to talk to homeowners and developing that rapport like Christy just talked about, where she's getting the deal lower than someone else because of that rapport in the first place. You have to find the pain points and things like that. So Christy, what are some of the pain points you see out there when someone's trying to sell a house? What's causing them that pain that makes them want to sell that house?
Well, I think in that one case, it was that he just trusted me. I mean, you know, there's a lot of, it shouldn't be that hard to actually do this business, because there's some shady characters out there, and you can see through that. When you're a homeowner and you're trying to deal with an aunt who just passed away, and you flew in to California, and you realized her house has been a hoarded mess for 30 years, where do you even start with that? You want someone who's going to come up and be compassionate and not just want to like take your house and write an offer and it not be a fair offer. I still give a really fair offer, and it's obviously got to work for me, and I tell them that up front. You know, obviously there's a small profit in here for me, but this has got to work for you too. Otherwise, I'm not going to feel good.
A week when they have cash in their hand, and how now they have all this cash, they're cash rich, and they're completely out of their situation, and in a much better, you know, mental and financial state because they got rid of this monkey on their back immediately, which, you know, could be a disarrayed house or a giant hole in a roof that they can't patch, or, you know, someone just went through a major divorce and just emotionally drained and can't deal with having to fix up your house and sell it. And you talk about all the pain points that you have to go through if they were going to try to list their property with an MLS agent, on the MLS and things like that. And we go through and even try to, if they won't sell us the house, we'll try to get you a listing too, and see if we can get the listing instead. You know, and that just adds additional cash in your pocket to go against your marketing budget, or if, you know, in your pocket if you're getting referrals, of course. So you know, I think all that is key. And so let's talk about the money piece really quick. Okay, so normally you have a number of lenders involved. Sometimes you might just have one lender, a private investor. Sometimes you might have, you know, a professional lender that's going to come in. And I don't like saying hard money because the other hard money lenders in the room are going to get pissed off at me. But you know, so the private money in the room, that makes plenty of private investors on deck that can come in and gap fill what the first position lender won't lend to, can be key unless you're doing a joint venture and splitting profit. You know, but how do you guys do it? Tell me how you guys structure it.
As soon as you say second position money, like we're in Q4 and you say second position money, I want to put a bullet in my head.
Yeah, but I'm talking about less than 75% of market value. You're not going up to 90%.
We're borrowing by 80 to 82% of the property value, of the future value.
Okay,
but I want, like, so one of the very important parts of how you actually borrow and structure your deals is that your exit strategy is a rental.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so if you're going to borrow today, and we're in like a ridiculously multi-million-dollar lawsuit with third position money, mind you, with $200 and something thousand of our investors' third position money, with somebody who basically totally screwed the deal in the first position as the anyway, I can't give a lot of details of the ring lawsuit, but, you know, we were suing the guy because he's trying to rob our investors. And, you know, and you hear Bruce Norris, like, I remember I was interviewing him and he, like, stopped me. And he was like, no, it's called hard money because it's hard to make, right? Like, he's like, you know, he sort of, like, put the kibosh on, like, look, those people earned that. Yeah. And so, like, we want to protect our investors' capital. And so I'm going to blow Jeff up in the back of the room, but Jeff's a private lender. Like, he lends his own money, he has his own clients, and his book's full. Like, Jeff doesn't have any money for you unless he says he does. But he's going to be concerned about capital preservation. And so, like, as a private lender, you're concerned about capital preservation. You want to know what happens if it goes to complete crap, right? If this deal fails, what's going to happen? Well, in LA County, right, if you had a failure, the market crashed, your yield on a rental is probably like 2%, right, from the amount you lend. And the Empire, it moves more towards like 4 to 8%, depending on how high desert, whatever. When you make a private money loan, or you ask of somebody private money, we believe, especially from the old loan structure we had, that you should have a first only that covers the entire project cost. Because in a failure, after a year I can say, hey investor, I did everything I could. I gave you a turnkey product, it didn't sell. Here's your property back, now you can rent it and weather the downturn with yield from a rental. And if you have second place money, you can't do that. That money gets wiped out by the first. And so I extremely discourage people to gap fund.
Okay. Yeah, I have 9, 10 cap, you know, rentals.
Yes.
So I have plenty of cash flow in there to make that happen, and I can always refinance and, you know, completely cover that.
Yeah, outside of California, it's like
and I've also been dealing with a lot of times on, you know, second position money. If you're lending that money, I would recommend doing cross collateral or something like that as well. If someone else has additional assets, to be able to put that against, to make sure he doesn't do it in California here.
You know what I think of it is, if the deal doesn't stand on its own 2 feet, don't do the deal. Well, if I have to cross collateralize or give second position money, I don't want to do the deal.
I do that for capital sources that are newer sources, or if I'm...
Oh, so they feel comfortable?
Yeah, so they feel comfortable. That's all. That's the only reason. Yeah. Otherwise, I'm not going to be in it for more than I need to be in it with my family, you know? I need to make my margins. You know, in Tennessee, it's 10 to 15%.
That's an amazing cap.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a great cap rate. I'm buying, you know, $150,000 houses out in that market too. So, you know, you're talking about $30,000 seconds, not $150,000.
Yeah, these are huge seconds.
Yeah, right. You know, so it's not like I couldn't go and be like, here's $30,000, dude.
Totally.
You know, like, so in that kind of a situation. But when you're dealing with, you know, and a lot of people focus. So there's professional lenders that focus on second position money because they're making ridiculously high yields on that money. And so they're also taking a risk. But, you know, just like Jeff does in the back. Jeff, can you raise your hand real quick on this? Jeff has actually spoken at our club about private lending in the past, and he focuses on people that are experienced, that know what they're doing, that have a good level of base knowledge. And whenever you're doing business with someone and lending them money, it's much more important to deal with somebody that has that experience level than someone that is new. And so you have the, you know, guys like Jeff that have their own capital that will lend you money but be a little bit more conservative with you, especially in the beginning, and don't want to do business with you if you're brand new. And then you have the professional lenders that they're going to kill you on interest rate, but then they'll lend you money all day long. You know, and so as long as the deal makes sense in the first place, right? And so you have different mindsets of different investors out there. There's guys that will do 90% of cost all day long for you, but you know they got to be under 75% of market value, and they're cool with that. But it depends on the lender. There's tons of different lenders out there. But if you're borrowing money, just like Steven's saying, you make sure they're protected. You make sure at all times your investors are taken care of.
You're like the one of the most cautious people I know. Like when I see your math, it's like, here's all the ways I'm going to bail you out. And that's why I brought it up, because like you're safe here, safe here, safe here, safe here.
Well, that's why I give them cross collateral. I never plan on losing their money.
Yeah,
so if
totally.
I am, it's 30 grand. I'm like, okay, well I can cover that.
But I bring it up because like you know, some of us in the room are really good at this, right? And you know, Todd and I have talked on several occasions about having fun, putting second place money in, and these are high net worth people. It's a small fraction of their and they have the risk appetite. And I still don't want to do it because I've had to call people and make that phone call, and it sucks. But you know, we're changing our structure, and Todd will probably talk more about it anyway because he handles the back end paperwork. But you know, if I were to start brand new today and I wanted to get an idea how to structure my deal, it would be joint venture and take one third of the net proceeds in the beginning and let a private money lender and an experienced person make the other thirds. And then I would graduate at some point to where I'm 50-50 with somebody with capital, right? And then they put up 100% of the capital and I'd run the deal. And then eventually, like where we're at, we can give the investor 1/3 of the net proceeds, and you keep the 2/3. And so it's like this graduation over time, and what you're doing is you're trading experience for money, and eventually your experience graduates into people are fighting to give you money.
And then basically what happens in that kind of a situation is you slowly, over time, over 10 years of doing this, you develop so many capital relationships where you just don't need the money anymore, and then at some point your rates start to go down and things like that. I mean, I'm looking at right now $1 million line of credit from a bank at 5% right now for my flips. And so what do you think is going to happen to some of my private investors? I'm going to say, well, I need to find a home for you right now, to find a way to utilize that capital and make money, but at the same time making sure they're protected, but I don't need it for my flips anymore. So, those are the types of things that over time you slowly develop, and as you show your balance sheet expands and you become more experienced, you're able to get better and better financing, and some of these commercial smaller banks will finance you at really, really decent rates over time, So, Christine, how do you deal with your funding sources? What do you typically do?
I do 2 trust deeds per property.
Okay.
Don't shoot me. I do not do JVs. I think it's safer to put people in a trustee position. I never touch the money. I don't have a securities license. The money gets wired right into escrow, and a hard money will fund up to 90, it's usually 90% of the purchase price. And then a private lender will fund the balance of the purchase price and either all or part. Sometimes I put a bit of my own money in of the rehab. So that's the way I structure it. It's worked. And to use the example of a property that I'm trying to resell for $500,000, okay, so let's say I'm working off an 8 to 10% return. My profit's supposed to be $40,000 to $50,000. So basic math here, what would I need to sell that property for in order to break even and not make anything? $450,000, right? So my investors are getting paid, so I would have to be $50,000 off of my comps before, so I wouldn't take any money, but my investors still get paid back. So that's why I think they're in a safe position to just take the trustee. So, but I do 2 per property.
And can you kind of go over the paperwork typically involved when you're dealing with a private lender and how you protect them with the paperwork?
Technically, a private lender is supposed to do their own note and deed of trust, but most people don't know how to do that. So I have done it. They have the choice if they want to review it by a lawyer or not. But usually hard money, they have their own loan documents, so that's pretty straightforward. The private lender will still get a note and a deed of trust. The deed of trust is what gets recorded against the property that puts the lien in place. The note is what spells out the term. So you're loaning $80,000, you're getting this much interest, it's going to get paid back when the property sells or within 10 months, whichever is sooner. The details of the note. It's pretty easy. It's 1 page, pretty straightforward.
What about you guys?
Yeah, we have a pretty complicated structure. I think we're about the only people in the country doing it this way. We have a lending company, Rehab Loan Group. It's a licensed California finance lender. So Rehab Loan Group has a California-only exemption for securities regulation called a 25102F. These are very boring details, but
I can tell you do the paperwork.
yeah, I do the paperwork. Yeah. So we do a short form deed of trust. We originate it as Rehab Loan Group to us. It's our company we're lending to. We originate the deed of trust, but then we do what's called a hypothecation, where that deed of trust is the collateral for a loan that a lender is going to make to us. These are business purpose loans, and they're able to lend to us falling under the 25102F securities exemption, because these are not securities in the traditional sense of the word. So we get an exemption, and as long as the money's coming from California and it's being invested in California, at least 80% of it, which 100% of it is, then they fall under our exemption. So these hypothecation documents, the piece of paper that is the deed of trust and the promissory note that Rehab Loan Group originates is the piece of collateral for the loan the lender's making to us. It's, if you think of the deed of trust like a car, it's like lending on a car. That's the piece of asset. So we default, which we don't, but if we did, the lender that lends rehab loan group the money would sue rehab loan group to get the deed of trust, and then they can go through the foreclosure process. It's one extra step, but because of the regulations that exist in California, it's the only way we can do the type of leverage we put into the deals and ticking every single compliance box. Because we want to make sure everything we did was fully compliant. We've got all this stuff reviewed by actually 3 teams of attorneys. So, I spent a lot of money. I have very expensive paperweight. I call it a private placement memorandum. If you ever want to waste some money, just get one of those. So yeah, it's a complicated process called hypothecation. Banks do this all the time. It's actually a very common structure for banks, where they bring in money from all kinds of different sources, and they collateralize all kinds of different debt pieces they have all over the place. So it's a common thing for them. When we talk to the mid-market people and people like that that have the big bucks, they completely understand it. When we try to explain it to somebody that's never invested in real estate before, it's fairly difficult. So it's much easier to just say it's a first position deed of trust.
I think it's key to, one sec. I think it's key to understand the way hypothecation works. What it really is, all you're doing is lending money and collateralizing your loan instead of collateralizing the property. And the way you can protect your investor in that case, instead of giving them a deed of trust, because you already have the deed of trust that you went on the property, or security against the property, you're giving them an assignment of deed of trust to protect their interest. At least that's the way I do it, when I'm doing a hypothecation or something like that.
I mean, naturally speaking, we wouldn't actually allow one of our investors to sue us. We would just give them the deed of trust. I mean, we're not going to actually hold them hostage with that. But the other side we do it now too is the joint venture partner, the joint venture agreement we have with an investor. This is a new thing. We just launched it. We're actually about to buy our first property with this structure, but it's going to be a partnership that we create, and then we basically give the investor 1/3 of the profit at the end. They put up the money, but we have this partnership together. The partnership owns the property, so it's an equity position rather than a debt position. So there will be no deed of trust on those types of structures.
Okay. And I think it's important to understand too, when you guys are lending money, most of the time you should be being put as the lost payee on the insurance policy. In my market, because I'm renting, they only give them an assignment of rents and leases. If you're a new investor trying to borrow money from private investors, you want to try to find ways to decrease their risk and to enable them to lend you that money in the first place. And so a lot of times some people ask for personal guarantees, which I know he's not going to do it, of course. So, but if you're a new investor in this case, you may want to go that route and do that if you have no other options of doing it. I understand after 10 years in the business, you're not going to do that anymore.
Never in my entire career.
I've done it before for a new investor, mostly because it's a smaller amount of money and I don't care, because I know that I'm not worried about it. Now, there's risk involved, of course, for me to do that. But in my opinion, I look at it like, it's not a big deal to me because I'm doing 10 of these a month, and I know that, I'll just sell 3 more and pay $30,000 off or whatever it is, right? But all of these there's a lot of little things in place that, you want lender's title insurance, you want to be able to make sure that you have proper title insurance, proper insurance involved, because a lot of times people get the wrong type of insurance. There's a lot of little things that go along with this. So we got a question here? Yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to know, can you get money from the rehab? Because I thought that's kind of hard to do.
A lot of private money lenders will actually lend you money for the rehab. They'll give you a percentage of your all-in cost, or they'll give you, 90% of your purchase price, and then, X percentage of your rehab. And so that gap funding is what I was talking about as far as second position money, or you can bring in your own capital for that rehab as well. But most of the time, most private investors will bring in a second position loan or something along those lines to fund that rehab gap that the private money lender won't.
If you don't have anybody like that, then
Then that's where I was saying, if you're a new investor, finding other ways to cross-collateralize or be personal guaranteed or things like that, any way you can to raise that money. And if you're personally guaranteed and it's your first deal and you don't have any money, then you're not really risking a lot. Maybe you're risking your wages along the way if you really lose it all, right?
Just for 10 years.
Yeah. So, it could hurt you in the long run, but at the same time, you do everything you can not to lose their money. Remember, you're trading, they're lending you their money. That's their life. That is a portion of their life they worked for. So if you lose that money, you're taking away hours of their life. So anything you can, I don't care if you have to pull it out of credit cards. I don't care if you have to do anything possible to find a way to pay them back. Go sell your car, pay them back.
A simple way to do it too is if you have a great deal that makes a ton of sense and all you're missing is the rehab portion of the funds, talk to your contractor, talk to a bunch of contractors. There's probably a lot of them that would love to get in on some of those profits, and they'll put up the money. There's a lot of contractors that can do everything on terms. They don't even have to come out of their own pocket if they've been doing it long enough. They get credit from all their suppliers and stuff, and they can pay them over 90 days in some cases. So I would talk to your contractors and see if they're willing to put up the rehab piece and get part of the ownership.
Just make sure when you do that with the contractor that you have your price up front before you start doing that, because it will creep. And they're like, oh, I'm getting more of the profit by just making the construction cost.
Hence why we're in a giant lawsuit right now.
There you go, there you go. And is there any, who's new in the room that's just starting getting their flips done and stuff like that? Just starting to try to learn how to flip? Okay, okay. So all of you guys, Jeff will lend you all the money you need right there. I'm going to throw him under the bus really quick. Actually, Dave in the back is a private lender as well, so they have some pretty good rates and terms right now as well from my experience with these guys. So that being said, let's talk about the contractors, which is, I think, the fun part, to talk about the contractors. So, Christy, how do you keep your contractors in line here? How do you just backhand them? Or
Show up and I yell at everybody. No.
Yeah, you basically, right? You got your blowhorn or...
Yeah, actually, I do the opposite of that. I figure if I gotta yell at somebody, I just don't want to be working with that person.
Yeah.
And that goes for anybody, you know, realtors, anybody I work with. It's like, I don't want this conflict. Life is too short. Go find people that you actually want to work with. I'm not looking for the cheapest guy. I'm looking for the guy who's not desperate, who will show up at the job site and not be wanting to get paid the moment he shows up on the job site, and just had to have a good working relationship. So it's going to do the job and basically not get us sued, you know. And maybe I just haven't done enough deals yet, but my company that I flip under has not been sued. I mean, we do the work right. I make sure he's licensed. Yeah, there's cheaper guys out there, but are they paying their guys right? Are they getting workers' comp? Are they doing the job right? Or are they cutting corners? So, yeah, and like I said, back to B&I, this is where I met my contractor who I've been using for about 6 years now, and he's just a really solid guy. So, you know, you could go to B&I, you could come to a real estate investing network meeting and probably get a referral. It's usually a referral is the best way to find a reliable contractor.
Yeah, the contractors are very hard to find. We've hired and fired more contractors, you know, than the people in this room for sure. But you know, it's the same thing. I mean, you know, if we show up at the job and it's day 2 and they're already doing a horrible job with the demo, it's just like a Band-Aid. Just get out, I'll pay for the day, you're done. Like, we need somebody else to come there because, you know, we need it done our way. It has to be done right. And especially if you're working with contractors, we always encourage working with licensed people because we don't want to carry that liability going forward. Once you sell the house, you have 10 years of liability you're carrying. So we don't want to carry that liability ourselves. We want to be able to say, actually, we didn't do anything to that shower. Our contractor over here did everything to that shower. So we just passed the buck on to them in the event of a lawsuit. My dad was in construction defect insurance, so I got to have all those great stories that he told us about chimneys collapsing and stuff. Yeah, the licensed contractors are the key, in our opinion. And most of the time, they're the most knowledgeable. They know the code. They know all that stuff. They know a lot of guys. We don't actually deal directly with our contractors anymore. We have a project manager who's a licensed contractor, and he's the one that hires all the contractors out. And he's great at vetting them. So he's able to go out, and he has a huge network of people he's worked with over the years, and he puts together these great teams that are able to do the projects themselves. So we don't even deal with them anymore. We have Mike deal with them, and we just deal with Mike.
Yeah, I think that's really key, right? Is having a contractor or a construction manager in place to manage all your crews and your contractors, because they can be there every day. They can be on them. You can't. You might have jobs or different things that you're doing. Unless you don't have a full-time job, you should hire someone that's gonna manage that contractor that's outside of that relationship.
So if you're brand new and you don't have the luxury of paying somebody an additional 10% on every job, because basically what we're doing is we're giving away 1% of our deal to a guy who runs 5 of the teams. I grew up in the trades. My dad's a surveyor, all our family friends are all tradesmen, and so I would go on jobs with these people. And you could discernibly see the difference in very specific characteristics between contractors. Rule number 1, you do not want the guy with a brand new truck. If the guy has a brand new truck, you do not want to work with that guy. Like, I'm sure they're going to do a fantastic job, you're just not going to be able to pay an investor rate. You're going to get charged like a homeowner. The second rule is when you meet this person, ask what other jobs they're currently working on, and ask if you can go visit those jobs. So if they tell you they don't have any other jobs, that's already a red flag. Not that they're necessarily bad if they don't. They may have just finished 3 giant jobs, been working on some guy's house for 2 years, or whatever the case may be, but at least have not a reference. Don't take a phone call, go look at the job, because you want to see the finished work.
See if the owner's still happy with them after.
Yeah, you want to see if the owner still likes them, right? Especially if
Plumbing did blow up on them.
Yeah. If they're not driving like a crazy like F450 with like every rack possible, and you can visit their job, you're about a 90% chance you have a decent contractor. Then if you're new, just get 3 of those people. And if you've done that, and they still show up on the job and screw up, they probably just got out of jail, or this is very, like, our people go in and out of jail, like, I'm not kidding. Like, they probably go in and out of jail, which a lot of tradesmen do, depending, there's not usually the guys who have a contract license. They probably had some weird family issue, and you just eat $500, and you deal with it, and you learn, and you pick somebody else.
Actually, I was going to say the same. Someone I was working alone with, they did something interesting with their contractors. We were talking about that earlier. Is on Monday morning, they have all the general come and all the subs come, and they have a meeting right there. Like, so somebody can't say, well, the plumber did this and the electrician did that. It's all hashed out right there.
That'd be cool.
It was an interesting thing because they were saying they had their project managers do that every if they have certain ones, they go out and be like, we're all going to talk right now. If someone has a problem, it's getting settled right here.
So David, if you guys are here, David's saying like you have a group meeting with basically all the subs on the job site. If you can get everybody there, that's phenomenal. Especially like, and if you're new, probably not a good chance you're going to get everybody there. So if you got from demo to finish, or demo through rough, so electrical contractor, AC contractor, plumbing contractor, and your demo guy and maybe your painter all in the same room, and then you do kitchen and other things. You got them all at the same time. They can probably work out hours, trade phone numbers, the job will go faster. It's probably a really good idea.
Or they do it just in case, like, we all know anybody who's ever dealt with it. The plumber and the electrician usually never get along because they're always trying to run the same area, and they can hash it out right there. Like, no one can blame the plumber for this or the electrician for that.
They cut my line to put the electrical in.
Yeah.
Question?
So are you hiring general contractors that bring in all the subs, or are you actually going out and bringing in all the subs?
We're hiring, so Mike has a general contract license, workers' comp, all that stuff, and he hires other general contractors. So, I mean, if you think of a deal, we make 15% cash on cash typically. We can take a 1% hit across all our deals and make 14% cash on cash by hiring a contractor who's making 10% of the contract. Now, what actually has been happening is we're making a lot more money because by having a contractor oversee another contractor, they have a score to settle. So they're on the job site trying to make themselves valuable, and now what's happened is Mike has a list of all these subs, and he's like, well, we get this floating floor for $2 a foot installed. Like, sorry, if you're a guy, like let's say he hires another contractor, if you don't have a sub that can do it for $2 a foot, here's the number to my sub, so that your contract becomes cheaper. And so what happens is he has this book of all these subs that fit each job, and he'll pick apart somebody else's bid, and he'll fill in the subs that we have at a cheaper rate.
I think, that kind of leads to a perfect question as far as how do you protect yourself from contractors. And in that process, it can be very, very key when you're working with multiple contractors or a very big job with lots of subs and things like that. Christy, how do you deal with this? You have one contractor you focus on, and he subs it out, or how does that work?
Right now I do, but I have 3 guys that I'll pull in as I get busier. But yeah, always hire a GC, and then he subs it out. I don't like the babysitting part to it. So, and there's still babysitting parts, you know, you'll show up and the tile's just not quite right, or they put kitchen A in with kitchen B in the same kitchen, and it doesn't match. Somebody's put the wrong color in. I mean, how many, you know, you do the same kitchen over and over again, how can you get it wrong? But you'd be surprised.
Because men are colorblind, that's why.
Yes,
So-
they're colorblind, they are. They paint purple if you didn't have, you know, the right color on the material list. But yeah, if I hire a GC and I just manage the GC and then he does all the stuff.
How do you guys protect yourself when you're dealing with these different contractors and things like that, other than having that sub, or that general contractor in place?
So Todd and I sat down with Mike now and came up with the pay plan, and it's 10, 20, 20, 20, 10. So that's how you get paid. A 10% deposit. 20, you don't get your second until your first round's complete. Lately, we've been adding what we expect the finished product list. So it's like it needs to be a doormat, right? Like it's like all these little things. The AC should be charged, and so what we're doing is it's all about setting expectations. So if we give our contractor like 30 line items that we need to see in every deal, and we say, this is a part of your bid, and they sign it, because all we're really doing, like there's nothing fancy about the way we operate. We started using an Excel spreadsheet, but for a long time, it's been a notepad page. So don't think it's fancy. We don't have some crazy system. And they sign at the bottom, so do we, and we write the amount we gave them on the top, and Todd wires 10% to the contractor direct. Mike doesn't take that money, he gets his money at the end when the job's done. And it's the managed expectation of a signed contract and a list of what we require a finished product to look like, sort of coupled together seems to fix the problem, because now we get a home inspection, and the home inspection calls us something weird, like dormers weren't painted and caulked on the roof, right? Like that's really common. It's the first thing home inspectors go for is like old caulking on the roof because it makes them look like they're valuable. We actually do our own
Inspectors always have to find something,
Oh, yeah.
otherwise they're not valuable, no matter what.
We actually order our own home inspection now. So we just go on Elite's page, order a home inspection. I think they're brokers. They send AAA inspections wherever does all their stuff out. We get the home inspection back, and then we hand that to the contractor. And we say, what was in your contract, what wasn't, fix everything, and we'll pay you for the things that were outside of contract. And that way, it's sort of like there's a couple checks. It's we get a list, we give them a demand of additional items, we pay them in series, we get to the end, we hand them back the inspection when they found something they either we both missed or that they just didn't do, and then we pay them their final amount, their last 10% after the inspection work is complete.
I think it's important to understand that quality control piece and making sure you guys get that inspection afterwards and that everything's addressed, because that's going to affect your sale on the back end. So if they get an inspection afterwards, sometimes they may not even get one if you just got one, you know?
We hand it to them.
Yeah, you're like, here, I already done all this work, by the way. We do the same thing. We go through and get the inspection, and then we do side-by-side pictures showing everything done in that report, which is really, really key and stops so many headaches and liability afterwards and things like that. And, you know, I think paying them in, you know, chunks like that is key, and doing that last 10% holdback is even more key, because you will not get them to go back to your job to do that punch list if you pay them that last piece unless you're constantly giving them more work. Some of the other things you want to be careful of when you're dealing with contractors, especially in large jobs, on the smaller jobs and the guys we've used over and over and over again, we don't really deal with the contracts. We just protect ourselves with the payments and make sure we have the right scope of work up front and things like that. When you're dealing with really large jobs, a lot of times you really want a contract in place to make sure that you are on the right timeline, that there's penalties in place for them to when they don't perform, or their overtime budget and things like that, and that there's benefits in place as well when they do perform. At the same time, you know, we did a $600,000 rehab on a 19-unit building, for example, and the contractor in place had tons of subs, and the HVAC bid was $75,000. And so, you know, we're looking at that going, I don't want to trust my contractor to make sure he pays the AC guy, you know, to get that money to him. I want a lien waiver from the HVAC guy, and I'm going to pay him directly. You know, so there's crews and jobs like that I think are really important to make sure that if your subs don't get paid, they have a right to put a lien on your property, even if you gave the money to your GC and he didn't, and he just didn't happen to pay him. So there's definitely issues with that I think you need to make sure you understand in more detail. I mean, the contractor I talked to in the beginning, you know, I should have asked this right at the beginning, but I was like, well, you know, how do you make sure you have enough money in the bank in order to pay for the stuff we just paid? And he goes, if I have money in the bank, then I'm good. That's how I track. And I'm like, you're not buying any more materials ever. I'm paying for every contract. Yeah, I mean, and that's, you know, I should have known up front when he was asking me about how he gets audited financials for this giant, giant commercial.
And, you know, like you said, most people we're dealing with are not financial wizards, so, you know,
Need
they're...
that money right then.
Yeah, they need that money,
Yeah.
because otherwise they don't have gas money to get to the job the next day, so...
And they love you. If you're paying them immediately, they're like, great, I
Yeah.
love working with this guy. I get paid exactly what he tells me.
And they love it because, you know, we're trying to find ways to pay them quicker. I'm like, how can we pay you quicker? Can you get the PayPal Here app, or can you get Cash.me or something like that? So when you're having an invoice, just email it to me or text me, and I'll just pay you on the spot. You know, you don't have to wait the next day. So. Immerse yourself in construction in some form or fashion, but in your first project, hire contractors. Don't bother with the Home Depot guys, because they're very, very high touch. You have to be there constantly, because they'll do all kinds of stuff they're not supposed to be doing and charge you for it, and they do it wrong. And then you have to have somebody come back, tear out the work they did, and do it right, and you pay way more money for it.
And in order to protect yourself from the construction piece, one of your best protections is your own knowledge base. So if you can go through, and as you do that job, you're pricing out materials, you're asking them, hey, how long can I just pay for my materials, as you buy them, and I'll just reimburse you, bring me my receipts, and then I'll pay you for them. I know, I'm talking about
because technically it's like contract for employment, and so when they get sued for a mistake, that comes back to you, and they want to know why you don't have workman's comp.
Okay, yeah. So in that case, what we do is we will go through and every job we do, we buy 100% of the materials ourselves, and it's ready for them, ready to go. But at the same time, if I'm a new investor and I'm going through and a lot of contractors will give you markups on some of the materials. So what I do to avoid that is I go through and say, okay, thanks for the receipt. I'm reimbursing you for the money right now. You gave me the receipt for all of that material. I can look at the receipt and say, how much square footage of flooring did you buy for this? I want the extra, on those types of things. I mean, it's little things like that I think you understanding what your material when you're hiring a sub versus an employee, that you want to make sure that contractor is a subcontractor into those rules, not the other way.
Wasn't it they have to have a professional license that designates them as non-employee, some aspect?
There's a ton of, professional license is one indication,
Yeah.
but they have to pay for their own expenses.
Yeah.
They have to go through and they have to have the risk of loss on their name. So, for them, so if they mess up and quote you wrong on their labor and they lose, then that's on them. There's definitely rules, and you can look it up in California, and under the California Franchise Tax Board, you can find the rules and things like that for subs versus not. But you walking that job yourself and doing that math and breaking it down and going to Home Depot, it teaches you a ton. We're on Facebook live stream, by the way.
Yes.
Every single time.
Honestly, yeah. If it's something super basic, which is rare that I get anything super basic, and you don't get paint carpet these days.
Yeah, no, what I'm saying, if you've got a bathroom.
I'm getting a permit for that. Because, look at it this way, it's like a double check almost. So your licensed contractor is supposed to be doing it right, and now the city is coming in and checking off that it's been done right. So just as additional.
Don't get into the time. Pulling permits could extend your time.
So you just need a rehab permit. So what everybody misses is you don't need a permit that like has all these, you don't need a plumbing permit, an electrical permit. You just need a rehab permit. What you're doing is repairing and replacing. So a rehab permit just asks you what your general scope of work is, and what the general dollar amount is, and it's one permit. And then they basically tell you, like, when are you going to need an inspection? Oh, we're going to need a combo inspection. Contractor, and then we have licensed A contractors underneath them that run the job. So the B licensed contractor has the most liability, and the A licensed ones have direct liability for their own individual job. So if you're new, that's what you're looking for, is that sort of two-tier system. And technically, the B contractor should be checking your subs for better value, but often they're working together because they do every job. So it doesn't hurt to take your bid and then walk it over to somebody else. Be like, hey, check this out, and have them pick it apart a little bit.
Yeah, but you really do learn very quickly how much things cost when you do that walkthrough yourself to make sure that, you know, hey, this contract.
It's either conditional waiver of progress payment or conditional and unconditional release of final payment. So that's to prevent them from being able to file mechanics lien. There's also, most contractors don't know how to properly file a mechanics lien either. So I'd say like 90% of them are filed improperly. And, you know, not that anybody in this room wants to screw over a contractor, but most of them don't know how to do it right anyway. So, because there's very limiting time constraints, they have to file it. If it's not already filed with the county, they lose their right to collect. So,
And you want to know this for disputes that come up, not necessarily because you want to screw them over, but if they
write a letter. And, you know, that's a very key step in the very beginning, is that we've been notified by this contractor that this work is being done on our property. And it will usually cite the general contractor on there that they're under, but they make sure they know who the end client is, which is important. So they're sending us this thing saying, we're doing this work to your property, and, you know, letting you know that they expect to be paid. You know, with them, most of these people we know we've worked with for a long time, so we don't do these waivers anymore, because none of them do it, except for that one concrete contractor. But that's just their process. They run a very tight ship, and yeah, they do it right.
It's almost like you're happy that they do it because you're working with someone that you know is reliable and has their stuff straight. You know, that's key. But yeah, if you're using them all over and over again, after a while, the risk just really isn't there. You know, so you know, and we've been hammering on construction because it's probably the hardest piece to really get your mind around and get down pat that you can make the most mistakes on, and that can cost the most liability afterwards. But, you know, there's a whole other process here for the sale of the property as well to make sure you can get top dollar for that property. Christy, can you talk just briefly about what happens once you're ready to list that property, or ready to, you know, make it look nice, and say the construction's done, it's clean now? Do you stage the stuff? Who do you use to go list the property and get it out there? You know, how much do you pay them? You know, what is the typical process that happens there?
Yeah, so when a property's finished, usually if it's about 500,000 or more, I'll stage it with a professional staging company. So they go in and they put the furniture and make it actually look like a home.
How much does that typically cost?
Anywhere from 1,900 up to 2,500 for standard 1,200 1,400 square foot. That's with one bedroom done usually, not all three of them. So I get it staged, and then I get professional pictures. For $200, you can get pictures that look awesome. There's nothing worse than looking at a property and somebody's taking their cell phone and, you know, and the pictures are sideways, like, really? You can't market a property this way. And then I will listen to it with a realtor, so I will give it back to the agent who brought me the property, or just another agent I have if I bought it direct from the seller. But the key is just to get it on the MLS. If you get it on the MLS these days, you know, it's pretty,
It's gone.
it's gone. Usually, you
In
know.
the down market, what do you have to do differently? Do you have to stand outside with a sign and dance or something out to get it sold, or?
I remember back in the day, I mean, the MLS is key. Once it goes on the MLS, it's all over the internet and people see it. And if you've priced it right, not super high, not super low, but right where it kind of should be, you should get, you know, at least 2 offers. That's all you need. Then you multiple counter back, then you have leverage to negotiate the price. And you should, you know, within that first weekend, you should be getting a couple of offers if you priced it right.
And you use a realtor involved, you list this yourself, or how do you do it?
Yeah, so I always use a realtor, so I ended up getting my real estate.
That home inspection's like sort of the beginning of it. And we ordered the home inspection, and then I'll give you guys a company that is amazing, QuickVid, QWIKVID. There is no better, we don't,
Spell that again.
QWIKVID.com.
QW.
Quick, but like QW.
Okay.
These guys put together the most amazing photo and video for $325 you will ever buy, including a website, QuickVid, QWIKVID.com. QuickVid. Like for $325, you get ridiculously good photos and video. And you can order it online, they build a professional webpage for you, you can add your agent info, it's incredible. A lot of people...
It's better than the creative real estate agent that gets down low with their camera, and they get that dramatic shot of the kitchen that are just terrible. You know, yeah, they make great quality things. They get the drone up there, they get the...
Pay the interest, who cares? Get a good plan in place to do your construction, you won't waste money, and at the end, give yourself time to list it so you have a good presentation. He tells a lot of the weird stuff too, like he's getting ready to
That first week or two is huge for you, so.
Yeah, you're launching.
Yeah, you want to get that done, many people as you can in that door the first couple of weeks.
One thing that, like, so one of the members, this guy Drew Naga, that came to our group, he's from the startup world, and he said, look, you're launching a little company, right? You're presenting your little business model to the world. Every project is its own little startup. So, like, you should be presenting in the best light to the public. Take your time. Trust me, the $500 in interest or whatever it costs you isn't that bad. You'll get a better result. So, Christy, you're always in the same area, right? Are you? Oh, you said you're all the way up to us too. But you're getting a lot of stuff from agents, because you said you're going back to the original agent?
Well, probably half and half, so I get 50% from agents, but still a lot of referrals direct to seller.
How do you find, when you're going to list, because basically what we just do is we look for like the top agent by data. How do you find an agent in a territory that's new to you, you don't have a relationship there to list it?
I probably know an agent every
You
year.
just know? Oh,
Yeah.
see, like you've been around long enough, you just know that, yeah. So like, I'm totally unfair advantage. And that happens to us, and like High Desert now, we have somebody list all our stuff. Like we are picking these people up. But so what we've been doing is, if you don't have MLS access, it's harder to do. However, we've been literally exporting the listings for the last year as a code from the MLS, and we've been sorting them by the number of sales, and we just call it top 5 agents. We interview all of them, we find the ones that are pay a bonus, a 0.5% bonus for a full price offer from a buyer's agent in the first 14 days, and we pay a 0.5% bonus to the listing agent if they close it in the first 45 days at full price. So there's an incentive for both people to move quickly, and it sort of allows them to get close to a traditional commission if they do a good job. The one thing I want to emphasize about listing through a realtor that many people don't understand, all this stuff is syndicated. So like, every single piece of information you put in MLS and in SoCal, with the exception of the mountains and the high desert, everything is all under one MLS in San Diego. And so when you put information in there, all these internet crawlers are grabbing those data points, and the thing that agents don't appreciate is that every search on the web is single elimination. Does not have this criteria, omitted from results. So when we when have an agent list the property, we tell them, you need to fill out every single damn checkbox that applies in the MLS. I want the schools, I want I don't even care if you think that doesn't look like a family, excuse me, doesn't look like a family room, looks like a living room, check both the boxes. When you pull up the MLS, I want that screen just full of all the stuff the property has. No false claims, but just full. Even it'll ask questions like, what's the size lot? 0 to 10,000. If you don't fill that data in, Trulia, Redfin, Zillow, they go, oh, this is an unimportant listing, and it goes down the page, and you lose rank. And so we just had one in Palm Springs. There's a property in Palm Springs. We had really good investors on it who were super cool about how long this thing took. We were coming up to the airport, we have to give this back. This property's beautiful. And the agent on the file didn't fill out the MLS. It was missing a bunch of stuff, and he was bringing buyers through, but what we've been doing now is we've been putting Arlo cameras in all our properties. So Arlo, A-R-L-O, for $500 gives you a group of 4 cameras, and they have two-way audio, which means you can hear everything your buyer is saying in the property. And the buyers are walking through, and the agents were holding open houses, and if anybody's worried about legality, open notorious filming, especially on your own property, is legal in California. I don't know what the municipal code is for it, but I have to look it up. Or civil code. But we can hear what they're saying. And so the agents who were holding open house were literally redirecting buyers to another property.
Wow.
So I fired the guy. I listed it myself. I have a license. I don't list properties, but for the sake of saving money, because it's getting really thin, I listed it. And we had a house in Palm Springs, and I was going out to the desert for a festival, so why not sleep in the house, right? So I was a stagecoach, and I slept in the house, and a buyer showed up, and I had just relisted the property, and he was basically ignored by the listing agent. So this is how bad of a job this agent did. Buyer paid $25,000 under the asking price, which still net us a $30,000 profit on the deal. It should have been $100,000, but it went so long, and all of it was because two failures, right? I didn't know the agent was redirecting people. I wouldn't have known that until I put the cameras up. And they didn't fill out the MLS, so you weren't seeing it ranking on the internet, and it disappeared.
Legal recourse or anything like that against that agent? Because it's like fraud, right?
Technically, but why? So we're in one lawsuit right now that we hated. Yeah, we hated even filing. I don't want to sue somebody. In this business, if somebody cost you money, it was the cheapest lesson you ever learned. You just get rid of them and never talk to them again.
You're doing the same thing. We had a question here, and then we'll...
Yeah, I only want your houses to be listed in the other houses that are listed in the area.
Kind of. If I could give it a number, I want my house to be 101%. So I want my house just a hair nicer than my competition, because then I always expect it's better.
Yeah, you want the next best thing on the market, something you want to offer none. But when you're remodeling from top to bottom, you can't help it, you're going to be the nicest thing.
Yeah. Question?
Regarding your flips, just maybe some bad experiences, or what would you do differently? Say if the property didn't sell.
Every stuff that's popular now, super heavy Spanish is coming back, Moroccan, and Moroccan didn't even know existed until the awesome people in Palm Springs told us how we were not Moroccan and we needed to be. There's all these, so if you want to avoid avoid the bad experiences, I would say it's mostly in design, for reason for not selling and pricing, obviously, but just look at what's popular. Just look at what's most popular on the web.
So was that basically the best money you spent getting those video cameras basically in there? So
They're in
you can
every
see
house
what
now.
people are saying. Yeah, you're seeing what everyone's saying about your property to know, well, I won't do that again. Okay, cool, I get this.
And even better, now they just came up with this Arlo Go, which is cell phone based. So you pay $10 a month for the cell phone inside the camera. You just screw it, no Wi-Fi, nothing, just screw it up onto the wall. You're done.
It's like the drop cams are the same type of...
Exactly.